We are live, just waiting a few more minutes for folks to join us. I see that folks are rolling in. This is super exciting. I will start in about a minute. Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Melissa Bayar-Candy, and I'm here with the Canadian Women's Foundation. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our first part of our two-part Small Business Week webinar series, hosted in partnership with In Good Company. So before we introduce our moderator and our panelists, let's take a moment to acknowledge that our work takes place on traditional First Nation, Métis, and Inuit territories. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet and work on this land. However, we recognize that land acknowledgements are not enough. We need to pursue truth, reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship in an ongoing effort to make right with our relations. Here's a bit of technical details to support your participation today. If you haven't already, please click on the interpretation option at the bottom of your screen and select the language channel. We have interpreters today working to make sure everyone's words are understood, so please select English or French from the options to ensure a seamless experience. There's also captioning available today in both French and English. Please visit the chat box, for the links to access the service. If you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen during the event. We will monitor this box and pose your questions at the end of the session, doing our best, of course, to make sure that we get to as many as possible. If you're having technical issues, please feel free to pop a note in the Q&A box and we'll do our best to assist you. Now I'm going to hand it over to Sigal Duale, Senior Director of Community Initiatives and Policy at the Canadian Women's Foundation, who will be monitoring our panel discussion. Over to you, Sigal.
Thank you, Melissa, for all your support today. Bonjour, hi, welcome and salama. Big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Sometimes when we join a Zoom webinar or virtual session, it feels like we all just teleported. So I hope you don't feel jarred from whatever else you were doing and are feeling grounded and in the moment with us today. My name is Sigal Duale. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a senior director here at the Canadian Women's Foundation. I feel fortunate that my day-to-day work, I get to interact and partner with such amazing small businesses and entrepreneurs and founders as they contribute so much to our economy. As Melissa mentioned, I welcome you all to our first of a two-part webinar series for Small Business Week. As many of you know, Business Development Canada has been hosting and celebrating Small Business Week every year for nearly 5 decades. I believe that small businesses are the lifeblood of economies and communities. They provide jobs, essential goods and services, attract visitors and tourists to our local economy, and build so much community wealth that stays in the community. And so to give you a bit more context for today's panel discussion, we know that women and gender diverse small business owners are really increasing their presence in the ecosystem. Our good friends at Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, which is a great hub of resources, do a lot of research to show that there's been quite a bit of progress in terms of small businesses and owners and operators that are owned by women. So we've seen 1 in 5, which is a bit of an increase over the last few years, where it's been 1 in 8, 1 in 7, 1 in 6, and now 1 in 5. As many of you know, Black, Indigenous, and racialized women and gender diverse business owners often turn to entrepreneurship, with one of the reasons being discrimination and the systemic discrimination that they have faced in the workplace. What's interesting is also in Canada that Indigenous women have the fastest rate of entrepreneurship and business ownership than any other community group. But with many small business owners and owners and operations run by women, trying to access capital to scale and start and grow your business continues to be a persistent challenge. In a moment, I'll be talking to our wonderful panelists about the gendered gap in financing for small and medium-sized ventures. You'll hear from financial institutions that are trying to do things differently, and from an entrepreneur who owns a family business and has firsthand experience that I think many of you might relate to. I'll just take a moment now to just say that we'd also like to let you know that tomorrow we're going to be welcoming 4 incredible women who are leading the change in Canada's small business ecosystem. They're going to be bringing in their feminist values into traditional business models and sharing a little bit more about how feminist practices and approaches can be integrated into small business models. And so we'll hope you join us there for that engaging session. I think my colleague just popped the link in the chat, which is great. So make sure you register to tomorrow's session as well. So today's webinar session is hosted or co-hosted with our wonderful partners at In Good Company, which is a collaborative systemic change project hosted by the Canadian Women's Foundation, Catalyst Canada, Planned International, and YWCA Canada. And we're aiming to advance gender equity inclusion in small and medium-sized businesses, particularly those that have been historically excluded from accessing capital and growing their businesses. And I forgot to mention who we are. Of course, the Canadian Women's Foundation. For those who don't know, we're a national public foundation working towards gender justice and gender equality. Through our current Partnering for Feminist Entrepreneurship project, we're hoping to build the capacity, or I shouldn't say build, more strengthen the capacity of women and gender diverse entrepreneurs at all stages of their business ventures. And so I'd love to now invite our wonderful panelists to join me on screen. We have Jean Barrett, Manager of Community Microfinance at Alterna Savings. Here's Jean. Larissa Metviva, Associate Director at Microcredit Montreal. Ritu Colisetti, Managing Partner at Greater Toronto Executive Centre. And Melanie Rupp, Senior Director of Loans and Advisory Services at WeBC. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining. It's nice to see your faces. Let me see if I can see your full faces here. So many different screens. There you all are. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so Jean, since you're closest to me on the screen, maybe what I'll do is, if you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your organization and your experience supporting small businesses, and then I'll turn it over to Larissa, Ritu, and Melanie, because that's who I see on my screen.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Sigal. My name is Jean Barrett, and I'm the manager for Alterna Savings Community Microfinance Program. I have over 25 plus years in banking under retail and commercial as well. And I currently manage Alterna's national acclaim award-winning microfinance program that supports and have a portfolio of over 250 small business owners, which include a lot of women. I also have a certificate in financial literacy and education. I provide advice to entrepreneurs and community organization. And Alterna Savings, we are a financial cooperative, also known as a credit union in Ontario, with over 115 years of experience serving our members and our community. As one of Canada's top 10 credit union nationwide, Alterna provides full service, member-owned cooperative financial solution and advice to our members. We have over 210,000 members. That includes personal membership, business membership, non-for-profit, co-ops, and organization accounts. We are member-owned and operated, and Alterna also benefit from an industry-leading online brokerage and investment management services. And as I stated, we provide full financial services to all of our members and our partners. We are committed in delivering good, caring, and transparent financial services and advice to our members so they can make the best decision for their life, for their family, and for their community. And as Alterna Savings, we put our members first, and we would like for them to reach their financial goals with the products and services that we offer. And we join our members with like-minded organizations. We strive to improve how we contribute and work towards a collective impact and promote community economic development. So that's in a snapshot about Alterna Savings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean, for that. Very comprehensive. Alterna is doing some great work in community. Thank you for sharing. How about Larissa, over to you.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Sagal. Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here. Very happy to be here. My name is Larissa Matviva. I represent Microcredit Montreal here. I'm Associate Director. It's been a year and a half since I joined the organization. Prior to that, I spent close to 20 years in the traditional finance system. I was spent 11 years at the Quebec Pension Fund of Funds, Caisse de dépôt et placement du Québec, for those who are familiar. And then 4 years at Desjardins Investments as an investment analyst, and worked in portfolio management and analysis. Towards the end of my career in finance and traditional finance, I think, like many people during the pandemic, I asked myself questions, what I really wanted to do with my life. And I came to understand that what was missing in my work was basically the contact with real people and seeing the impact of my work on their lives. So I made the decision to change my professional life quite dramatically. I joined this non-profit organization called Microcredit Montreal that's been around for 33 years. We were initially created as a community lending project to basically help local entrepreneurs who were excluded from the traditional finance system for one reason or another. And that's still what we do. However, we've grown over the years, and we've developed other programs, such as a lending program to internationally trained professionals who come to Canada in hopes of having their professional credentials recognized. We help them financially to accomplish that goal. And then we also have a training program for women entrepreneurs. This is it's a training program, but at the same time, it's a lot more than that. It's training / networking / mentorship program that sometimes leads to a loan. Sometimes women who are ready to start their business at the end of this program come to us for a first loan in order to accomplish their goals. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do.
Thank you so much, Larissa. There's a lot that you do. Hard to capture in a nutshell, but really appreciated. How about over to you, Ritu?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ritu Koliseki, and I'm very, very happy to be here and join. I've worn many hats in my professional life, and today I'm the managing partner at Greater Toronto Executive Center, which is a business center, a shared space environment for professionals, startups, entrepreneurs, Canadian satellite offices. We're a space that provides meeting rooms, furnished offices, virtual office solutions, because let's face it, not everybody needs a physical office space. A business address is good enough. Growing up, we moved around from several places because of my father's job. I've lived in Kenya, I've lived in Tanzania, Singapore, India, and I appreciate this now at this stage more than ever because it's really opened my horizons, taught me to be more appreciative of different cultures, and really open to different perspectives. We moved here when I was 11 years old, and who knew in my 40s I would be running a family business while raising two amazing daughters to be strong and hopefully continue to grab life's opportunities in both hands. Watching my own parents work hard and take risks, and even going back to school to provide my siblings and I with the life that we've had so far, it has really, really left a mark on me. And their journey as new immigrants to Canada was tough. And I don't think I'll ever fully grasp the extent of their struggles. However, it is what drives me to make things better for others, especially my daughters as well. I do believe business is an idea, a concept. It's a vision that we can use our talent, skill, and resources to bring to life. I believe it doesn't matter who you are, but your abilities and potential should matter to those who want to invest in you. Our business center clients, our team, our vendor partners are a very diverse group of professionals, and I'm entrepreneurs as well. And I'm very, very proud to work with them on a regular basis and hearing their experiences with whether it's getting funding, whether it's growing their business or reaching the target markets that they're trying to, or the clientele they want to gain, really helps me both professionally and personally. Our flexible workspaces are designed for businesses who require that flexibility and continuous access based on their own schedule rather than what the world of 9 to 5 is all about. Also on a professional note, I'm also the vice chair of the Professional Development Committee at Mississauga Board of Trade. And the goal, of course, in mind is creating workshops and sessions that are useful to business owners and managers and entrepreneurs today. I'm really thrilled to be a part of this panel today, and I look forward to learning about some of the financial industry perspectives, as well as hoping to leave you a mark that can help you grow and sustain your business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Always learning so much when you speak. And last but not least, Melanie. Who are you, Melanie? What is WBC all about, and what's your passion when it comes to small business development?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to learning from all the panelists today. This topic is near and dear to my heart, closing the gender gap in financing. So I am Melanie Roop. I am the Senior Director of Loans and Advisory Services with WBC. I've been with WBC for 5 years, and it's a great organization supporting women entrepreneurs in British Columbia. We were founded almost 30 years ago with funding from the federal government that provided a $5 million loan fund to provide loans to women who are starting, growing, or buying a business. And it's just amazing to me that 30 years later, we still need to exist and to provide that financing to fill gaps that continue to exist. So it is a long-term process. In terms of numbers, WBC in the last almost 30 years has provided over $35 million in loans, and the maximum loan amount that we do is $150,000. And a very common amount is $50,000. But in addition to funding, we also provide wraparound supports, and that includes business advisory services, skills development and training, mentoring, and a supportive community. That it's not money alone that entrepreneurs need, but it's the wraparound support to help them overcome obstacles as they come along. I think just a little bit about my background is I spent 17 years with a traditional bank. Part of that time was in commercial banking. And it was when I was a commercial lender. I was working with all male business owners and CFOs. And at the time, women were doing very well in academics and obtaining university degrees in business and law. And I said, well, women can also start businesses. They just need to know how. And so the focus for 20 years was in bringing women together to know that they were not alone, that there were a lot of other women entrepreneurs. And now that's largely achieved when we look at the breadth of organizations across the country supporting women entrepreneurs. And now my focus is on dismantling the barriers to accessing capital, because women have big ambitions. They're not doing it just as a lifestyle. They're doing it to scale large businesses, and they need capital to do that. And at the same time, we talk with lenders about how they can change their lending policy and not increase the risk profile. So I'm really excited to carry on the conversation here. And thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thanks so much, Melanie. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm just gonna, before we get into some questions, because I know I have lots of questions, we're also gonna take questions at the end of the webinar. And so throughout the session, if there's things that come to mind, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box, and we'll ask them as we get closer to the end. Just a reminder again, if we could maybe all just speak a bit slower, because we do have interpretation and ASL and LSQ with us today. And I will also, that's more of a note from myself, because I do speak a bit fast. So again, thank you to all our panelists, Larissa, Melanie, Ritu, and Jean, for joining us. As you know, the title is, like you said, Melanie, kind of closing that financing gap. You know, so it goes without saying that access to financial services is really repeatedly identified as the most significant barrier for lots of women and gender diverse small businesses. And we know that capital, of course, is the lifeline, as you all know, to a lot of business development. And you need affordable access to financing to be able to hire staff and build infrastructure, or, you know, grow and remain competitive as a small business. And so for a myriad of reasons, we know that women also tend to bootstrap a lot more when launching businesses, right? And we bootstrap with 50% less financing or capital than our counterparts or men. And then to add to that, the financing gap is even more pronounced if you're a small business owner with a disability, or if you're a Black woman business owner, or racialized, and so forth. And so given all of these kind of various obstacles, could you tell us a little bit more about the challenges that you're seeing for entrepreneurs and small businesses as they seek capital to kind of launch, sustain, and grow their business, especially since you have a very unique perspective as a financial service provider? So maybe I'll start with Larissa.
Thank you, Sigal. Well, first of all, I have to mention that the vast majority of our clients, people who come to us, participants in our programs, are immigrants, about over 80%. With that comes a big package of different challenges. I think you would agree with me if I said that, immigration is already an entrepreneurial act in itself. If you think of the number of struggles that those women have, sometimes they're learning one or even two foreign languages at the same time. They're learning about this new society where they want to build their new lives, building their relationships from scratch, learning about credit history, its importance, while trying to build it at the same time. So I think all of those challenges, if you add to it that many of them are single mothers, that adds yet another layer of challenges and responsibilities into their lives. So I think, those are the first struggles that women face before they even think about approaching a financial institution for credit. Therefore, I think it's very important to have a system in place where those women can be listened to and understood with the reality that they're going through. I was just reading an article this morning about a woman who had a business idea for several years, but she was only able to put it into practice when she built a business plan that accounted for the time she needed in her day-to-day life to take care of her 6 children. Once she became aware of that, she could write a business plan that would include this part of her reality into it. And then, thanks to financial partners who believed in her, she was able to put this plan in practice. So I think, yes, in addition to all of the challenges that immigrant women face, most of all, they face a misunderstanding from the traditional finance system. That's about what I have.
Thank you so much for that, Larissa. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's great. I mean, yeah, the challenges are layered, right, and intersecting for different entrepreneurs and different small businesses. Jean, what are you experiencing at Alterna and in some of the kind of broad or maybe even specific challenges in your perspective?
Yeah, I echo everything Larissa states about women entrepreneurs from the different diverse backgrounds, seeking financing, seeking how to really start that business. In my experience at Alternus, I noticed there is not a lot of ecosystem support for a woman when she's looking to bring that business idea into something that she's building that foundation. Where do I go to help someone, put my vision into paper form? Because as banks, we're looking for that business plan. How do I write that business vision, that business idea? So we see that becomes a little bit challenging, especially if she's a newcomer to Canada. There might be a language barrier there. She doesn't know the Canadian landscape in order to go out there and seek the different supports that are available. Another area that we notice in terms of barrier is understanding what credit is like. What does my credit look like? If I approach a bank, one of the first things that they're going to look at is my personal credit. How do I manage my credit? Where should my credit sit? What does that look like? And lastly, I would say, understanding the type of business that you're going into. Is the business in an area that is already saturated? Or do you have this unique niche market idea and product that, that customers will be banging on the door, and you're able to generate some revenue and sales from there? And also going into the bank and firstly having a conversation with the bankers. We feel that a lot of women entrepreneurs, they're afraid to approach the bank, to just have a conversation. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking about opening up a business. From the bank, what are you looking for? Doing that research, finding out what's needed so that they can be prepared when they come into the bank. They can negotiate for themselves when they're deciding to take on business credit. And they can understand that the financial piece is only one aspect of their overall business when they're looking to sort of build, develop, and create that business that is going to be long lasting. And those are some of the barriers that we tend to see. I also want to throw in that Alterna Savings, we have our community microfinance program, which we've been running for 22 plus years. And that program was created by a woman entrepreneur who saw that there was a need, there was a gap in the marketplace to support entrepreneurs, primarily women who were looking for maybe a small amount of finance to get their business going. And through our community finance program, we were able to identify different target groups. And one of the target groups that really jumped out over our experience running our program is women entrepreneurs. They are the least served. They're the least to get credit to start their business. In traditional financing, sometimes they're asking, do you have a partner? Is the partner a male partner? Without providing them that support that they're looking for. And so hence we created our Working Woman Business Microloan Program specifically to support those women entrepreneurs who, are able to be empowered and self-confident and step out in that, entrepreneurial space to get the financing that they're really need to, grow and scale their business. So just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank you so much, Jean. I know I could see Melanie thinking, oh, I can jump in. And you're welcome to jump in, Melanie, at any point. And Larissa, really, it's a conversation to hear your different perspectives as financial providers. And Rita, I'm going to come to you afterwards to hear your perspective, of course, as a small business owner. But go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, it's really interesting hearing the various perspectives. I think from WeBC's perspective, we are a development lender, which means we provide the loans for startup. And our intent is that the clients get their first loan from WeBC. It's a 5-year term loan. And over that period, they learn how to manage a term loan and work with the lender and provide regular financial reporting and do annual reviews so that during that time they can build a relationship with their existing banker. And then when they need additional financing, once they've completed paying out our loan, they can then go to their own bank and get the line of credit, the term loans, and whatever additional financing they need. Even before they've paid off our term loan, we encourage them to set up a line of credit with their existing financial institution. In 2021, we did research with women entrepreneurs in BC and found that what were the barriers to accessing capital from traditional lenders. And a big one is that they want to access smaller amounts of money more often. So they don't want to take out a $150,000 loan. They want to start with a $50,000 loan and pay that off and then take out additional financing, maybe in 5 years or maybe in 3 years. People talk about women being risk averse. And women are not risk averse. They are risk aware. They need to understand what the risks are and then see how to manage those risks. And I think that's a different way, very much a different way of thinking than male entrepreneurs. So the key thing is that the financial institutions set up their lending practices in a time when there were no women working outside the home, and other underrepresented groups were working in low-paying jobs. And today that's very much changed, and and people are achieving great things, and they need funding to do that. But the financial systems haven't changed, and they need to change. And there are things that we can do by making funding more accessible. And in this regard, the federal government, through the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy, identified this as a need, that women need smaller amounts of money more frequently. And they set up the National Loan Fund, the $55 million National Loan Fund. And that is accessible. One of the 4 partners is the Women Enterprise Organizations of Canada, and that URL is WEOC.ca. That is a great starting point to look at funding from anywhere in the country.
Thank you so much, Melanie. We're touching on so many different challenges, and I could see some opportunities also coming up. Great point about risk aversion versus risk astuteness, right? And being able to actually make better choices with all of the information that's in front of you, right? With most small businesses want to have that information firsthand. Larissa, sorry, did I already go to you, or was it Ritu?
I think
Ritu.
Ritu hasn't spoken yet.
There we go. Hi, Ritu.
Hello. So I know we were, I think when you and I were speaking earlier from a small business perspective, especially pandemic recovery time, from the ground level and just meeting and interacting with our clients. Like all Canadian SMEs, we certainly faced a lot of uncertainty and challenges as well. I think just in the last 2 years, how quickly clients had to, our business owners and entrepreneurs had to quickly reevaluate how they're going to work, where they're going to work out of, what are their staffing needs because of all these uncertain times that they were facing. Was a real challenge. I know in our world, for example, especially over the last 2 years, or at least prior to that, during the pandemic time, an important segment or our whole entire business was shut off, which was meeting room rentals, because as you know, there was a lot of mandates and closings and so on and so forth. So we had to really figure out how to do certain things differently, to make sure that we're able to support our clients at the ground level as well, and while still maintaining our obligations, not only to our staff and our vendor partners, but of course our important bills to make sure we keep running on a daily basis. But I think one of the questions you had asked me was, as a result of this, what type of opportunities did you come out of post-pandemic? And I think for our world, what we realized was there was a lot of increased acceptance and utilizations of different things. Like, for example, virtual meetings for all businesses. That was something that really opened up the market for many of our clients as well. Networking groups, shared office spaces, virtual addresses, hybrid workspaces, all solutions, cloud-based solutions that really helped business owners shift their business as well as reduce their operational costs, so they can actually free up some of their capital to focus on expanding their business. During this time, what we discovered, or what we noticed ourselves, was a lot of our clients increased their client base geographically as well. And that was a huge solution, or a huge advantage for them to grow their business since the pandemic time over the last couple of years as well. I think one of the other things was some of the loosening up of strings from the financial industries, accepting e-signatures, virtual meetings to actually conduct their business, really help some of our entrepreneurs as well as our clients to continue operating and expanding more efficiently as well. I know for us, we've taken advantage of a lot of different opportunities that came our way, such as some of the technology grants that were out there to help expand our digital footprint, because we did realize that a lot of the hybrid workspaces are here to stay. A lot of the larger organizations are now trying to decentralize as well. And because of that, we really tried to see where we could shift our business and pivot so we could take advantage of some of these opportunities that were coming our way. And really, some of the municipal and provincial funding and grant opportunities were we really did take advantage of, because obviously getting financing sometimes was not as easy or as quick in our world. So there was a good share of opportunities as well, I think, coming out of what we, over the last couple of years, as most businesses are now trying to do pandemic recovery.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Exactly. I mean, I think it's interesting to hear the pivots that small businesses have been doing during the pandemic and turning some of the challenges into opportunities. I mean, the economy is still in recovery mode, right? We still have a high cost of borrowing. There's still levels of high inflation. I feel for a lot of those small businesses who found those opportunities to pivot, who found opportunities to continue recovering over the last few years. There was a moment, just delving into the opportunities pieces. We talked at length of some of those challenges that exist for small businesses and entrepreneurs from your perspective as financial providers. So I want to delve a little bit more into the opportunity side. And I think, Larissa, you mentioned that those wraparound supports that you provide to entrepreneurs was really vital, right? And so kind of building off that point, Ritu, I'm really interested and curious to learn about what is your experience been like in navigating, if you can delve a little bit more in those, the grants and those other opportunities, maybe you access incubators or mentoring or networks. that really helped you find those opportunities?
I think today, starting a business with low operational costs has become easier in recent years, depending on the nature of your business, of course, the industry that you're in, the location that you're in. I mean, you don't need an immediate space. You can join marketplaces to help source your product. You can outsource a lot of your tasks. You can utilize a lot of the digital marketing channels that are out there and the cloud-based solutions. Sorry. There are several municipal, federal, and provincial programs out there that I was mentioning earlier that offer grants or low interest loans or even subsidies for hiring. We've heard from my fellow panelists here about the various microfinance lending programs, as well as other financial resources. I mean, we certainly took advantage of some of these options as well. That being said, of course, one does require capital, and the current business environment with the high interest rates, inflation, and getting access is harder. The need is growing for alternative financing. And I mean, I personally know from my various network groups that, entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs that have turned to crowdfunding, have joined incubator spaces as well, looked at equity options, as well as angel investors. And these are gaining more momentum today. And these alternatives also give startups that opportunity to directly get in front of their clients, get that funding quicker, and at the same time get the feedback as they need. Incubator spaces is something I am a firm believer on. Many years ago, there was another business that I had joined a business partner in starting up, and to be honest, if I had known about these incubator spaces and structured programs out there that can help startups, I think I would be in a very different place today as well. I mean, if your business is in an idea stage, for example, joining an incubator space, and many of them are designed for women entrepreneurs as well, is a great benefit. They can really help you refine your ideas, your concepts through mentorship, structure, including access to funding. I mean, many recognize the diverse cultural backgrounds that all of us come from and the unique challenges faced by women, gender diverse, and keeping diversity, equity in mind, inclusion in mind as well. And a lot of their practices reflect that. If your business is you're already well underway with your business and you're ready to scale and grow, looking at an accelerator program, for example, would be something that might be a good idea for your business. That provides support and access to help you scale and grow, and it's just a little bit different from an incubator space. Sorry. The bottom line is whatever alternative you explore, it's very important to make sure that it's right for you. The terms make sense for you. I know women entrepreneurs that have walked away from accelerator programs because the amount of the investment that they're receiving is at the cost of the time that they could use for their business, and it just doesn't make sense for them. So it's really important to make sure whatever you choose is the right fit for you. And finally, I can't stress the importance of network and business groups. To me, being an entrepreneur at a startup stage or any stage can become lonely very quickly. To making sure that you are surrounded by like-minded individuals that can help you with your struggles, that can give you insight, that can even mentor you along the way is very, very important. I mean, today, since post-pandemic, there are so many virtual networks, but they're not only just in-person sessions. You can join mastermind groups, accountability groups, referral networks for your business where you can exchange ideas, and even mentorship networks, because maybe you need some additional advice to help you get to the next level of your business. Whatever it is, as long as it brings value to you and helps you support and get through the day, I think is certainly, these are all some good non-financial support systems that can certainly help.
I love what you said, Ritu, the importance of finding the supports that meet business owners where they are, because most women tend to self-fund their businesses when they're launching. And so I'm going to turn over to you, Jean, and then Larissa and Melanie. As lenders, what do you see as those key opportunities for lending to or investing in women's small businesses? And just a quick pause and a reminder that, again, just to speak a bit slower because we do have interpretation. I know that we tend to speak a little bit faster, so if you can just pause a little bit for a moment and speak a little bit slower, that would really help some of our audience members.
Yeah. I'll slow down my speech, but thank you for that question. Some of the key opportunities for lending to women and gender diverse entrepreneurs is through the development of several pathways that Alterna has tailored to meet the needs of our members and our entrepreneurs. For example, we've done some research and done some outreach. We've created a lending product such as the Alterna Working Woman Business Loan through our microfinance program. That product is designed for women-owned who have small business that are in need of some financial support to grow their business. It allows qualified female entrepreneurs to access loans anywhere from $1,000 up to $25,000. This will help them to support their startup business or their small business, help them to grow the business to even a full-time and a part-time business. In addition to that, we created some innovative financial solutions, such as our joint co-lending program with BDC that looks at 3 criteria, whether there are a woman entrepreneur, Black entrepreneur, or a social entrepreneur, that they can access an additional financing up to $25,000. So they could fully get up to $50,000, to the point that Melanie was making, that most of women were looking at or thinking of borrowing small loans, repay that small loan and borrow another small loan to pay that small loan. And that's how they're growing and growing their business and thinking about their financing. And so creating those financial solutions help those entrepreneurs to get into those stages and have access to financing. Some of the opportunities I do think that needs to be out there is communities creating microloan programs or loan programs to serve women in certain communities, in certain areas. For example, if they're newcomers to Canada, they're a woman entrepreneur, maybe it's a person that has a disability, creating those programs to support women entrepreneurs is really key. And then also, maybe having some of the private sector, partner with financial institutions, providing funding in terms of funding through a foundation that will help women entrepreneurs. Because I think at financial institution, because we have policies and guidelines to follow, lending through financial institution is very rigorous. It's very strict. And sometimes we have to look outside of that. How do we support the women entrepreneurs who primarily don't fit within this box that we have listed under the financial institution? But here they are, they're unique. They have certain criteria or gems that is really sort of important to them. And how do we blend those two worlds in order to support that woman entrepreneur? So those are some of the opportunities I think as institution that we can look at doing, including how Alterna created our microfinance program, because we noticed there was that gap in the marketplace in order to support entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs alike.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Jean. I think we need more of those tailored programs and tailored services that are co-designed with community in mind, co-designed with entrepreneurs and small business owners to say, hey, these are the types of programs and services that we're demanding. And this is how they should be operated and implemented in community. Larissa or Melanie, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing in the lending or investing to small business owners?
I think it would make sense for me to speak after Jean, especially after what she just said about community lending organizations and programs. We are one of such organizations. Just to touch upon quickly what Jean said, and before her what Rito was saying about opportunities that arose after the pandemic. I think one of the one of the good things that came out of the pandemic for organizations like ours and through us to our clients is that it brought our work in the line of focus for different financial partners from the city of Montreal, for example, from the federal and the provincial governments, who realized what important work organizations like ours were doing, and they decided to invest more into programs that we offer. And it also brought attention from private partners who also decided to start contributing to the work that we do and other organizations like ours do. And I think, yes, that allows us to give more and more high quality service to our clients, our female and gender diverse clients in particular. Just as one example, I can say that there has been a fund created by the federal government, especially for women entrepreneurs, that allows us to give out bigger loans. I forgot to mention that Microcredit Montreal gives up to $20,000 at a time, but several clients have come back for a second and then a third loan, so there's no limit there. They can borrow several times. Well, thanks to this federal intervention, we can now lend more easily, higher amounts. For us, a higher amount is around $20,000. We've given a lot more loans like that this year, and that's one positive impact. Another positive impact, thanks to our partnership with the City of Montreal this year, we've been able to extend our service to the women enrolled into the Women's Entrepreneurship Program. We've been able to offer them mentorship with either our volunteers or paid consultants, because we've been able to hire a person who is coordinating all that, coordinating the relationship between our volunteers and matching them with our clients and their particular needs. So yes, I would say in terms of sectors, we see that after the pandemic, catering and takeout businesses are blossoming. At least there are more and more of them, and traditionally women are very active in this area. So we're seeing a lot of opportunities there. So
Thank you, Larissa. Yeah, it's the RTE, or the ready to eat market, right? And the meal prep market is a big sector. It makes me think in the post pandemic how important our food supply is, right? And how we saw that even with the high inflation, how important it is to support local food supply chains when things are going the wrong way. So Melanie, what's your perspective? Kind of where do you see those trends or opportunities as a lender and as an investor?
Yeah, great insights from Jean and Larissa. And then now you've just asked the question about food security. And we're working on a project with small-scale food processors who are supporting women to access equity funding from investors. And that's a very big project. And it all ties back into building a strong, secure food system in Canada. And they're very, rightly so passionate about that. But I wanted to build on a couple of insights that Jean and Larissa talked about. I think first is to know that the research shows that, and I apologize, I'm very focused on women because that's the things that we focus on, but I think it also applies secondary to non-binary and gender diverse people as well. They just don't have the research on it yet. But the research for women shows that women start great companies and they are great leaders. Women founders generate more revenue in their businesses over 5 years than their male counterparts. And women are more efficient with their capital, in fact, 2.5 times better. So in terms of opportunities for lenders and for equity investors and other types of funders, women are a good investment. And there's an unfounded belief that women and gender diverse are a higher risk. We've been lending to women and our repayment rate is over 98%. I think these are very, very strong data that show there is opportunity lending to women. I'll talk quickly about our partnership we have with the largest credit union in British Columbia is Van City. And 3 years ago, they created a women entrepreneurship loan and they partnered with WeBC to provide those all important wraparound support. So we provide the mentoring, the business advice, the skills development, and the credit union Van City provides the loan funding. And when they first opened it up, they had over 400 applications and did not approve one loan. And they said, wait a minute, we have to stop. And they stopped taking applications. And internally, they looked at their processes and they looked at their lending policies and they made changes. And that's what we want all financial institutions to do, is to look at their lending policies and make changes, because women and gender diverse individuals are a good risk. They do repay their loans. It's important that individuals look at putting together their own funding mix. So, we talked about, Rito mentioned about grants and other types of non-financial supports. There's loans, there's money from investors, there's crowdfunding, there's alternate financing, getting a loan from your Shopify account, many different ways. There's also collaborations where we will often partner with other lenders. So we give 50,000 and another lender does 50,000 and there's some grant of 20,000. And together, this is your funding puzzle that you're creating. And it's very important, as Rito mentioned, to understand the pros and cons of all the different choices. So you need to educate yourself and ask for help. People like WeBC and the Women Enterprise Initiatives across Canada and all the other partners here, we're all looking to serve and help entrepreneurs. And so ask for help. And if you don't find someone that supports your dream, your potential, your business idea, then just keep looking for someone who does, because they are out there.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Yeah, I mean, we talk so much about lending and debt financing, right? This session is about closing the financing gap. There's so many different types of financing that's available to small business owners, and gaps that need to close in those types as well, and angel investing, in venture capital funding, in peer-to-peer forms of lending that organizations like Corrales does really well, and in equity financing and so on. And so very, very quickly, I just want to get your perspectives each. Imagine that you have, an X account, or formerly what is known as Twitter, and you had 150 words to share with your colleagues, your loan officers, the fund managers that you sit with, those in the financial services sector. What would you tell them? What would you ask them to do differently in their work so that they can better support small business owners and operators?
I don't know if this would be 150 words or less, but
It's hard to do.
yeah, and just echoing on so many wonderful ideas that were shared, like Larissa, I think one important point you raised is women, when running their businesses, have additional responsibilities. And it's really important to know and have services and resources and investment that caters to this or addresses this or takes this into consideration. I know there's an increased growth in venture capital funds that are focused on women entrepreneurs, which I'm really happy to see. I hope there's continued growth on that. And also something that Jean and Melanie, both of you touched on, is increasing financial literacy. I think that's very, very important. I mean, education on your credit, securing funding, what types of funding works best for you, your business model, and also what are the best practices to even approach an investor. I don't think there's many of us that recognize or realize, that there's certain things that people may look for, and how do you, that can really help the success rate of women-led and diverse gender startups as well. I think another part that's missing is the roadmap from your idea to actually getting to the stage of startup. I mean, what does that look like? So again, just education more, providing more literacy to really help entrepreneurs to grow and do what they love to do. Increased investment in structured programs. I think that's very, very helpful. So it all just speaks to education. And again, like I said earlier, business is an idea. It's a concept. A lot of these concepts are influenced by the visionary surroundings. So where they grew up, what is around them, who are they dealing with on a regular basis can spark something that can, blow up into a massive success story. So I think there are many untapped markets that a lot of investors don't even realize or see the need yet, which someone that's on the ground may come up with. So, providing access, opportunity, and funding, as well as resources, is very vital here. And let's add the story, addressing unconscious bias, challenging the stereotypes. That is a long journey, but it's a very, very important aspect. I think investors also needed to be reminded continuously of the success stories that are out there. And Melanie, hearing what you just said about stopping any more applications until we evaluate what are we doing differently that we can't seem to be lending more, I think is important. And a final aspect to this also is providing more data, collecting more data to prove. And the statistics you mentioned, Melanie, today, I really, really do appreciate. And I hope you're okay, because I'll certainly share them as well, because it's very, very positive to see. So at the end of the day, my perspective also is coming as a very urban center focused. I mean, we haven't even touched on the rural communities and how they can access a lot of these opportunities, even such as the structured programs that are out there. So how do we as a business community create more pathways, I think, from that brilliant idea and making sure it becomes a successful startup and scales and grows? How do we feed that? How do we, encourage that? So it was definitely not 150 words.
And if I could go next, I do believe that as financial institution, we need to. Sorry,
Go ahead.
we do need to encourage the staff, the individuals that work for our organization, to volunteer more. We're in an organization that deals with financial services and products, and a lot of it is credit majority of the time. How do we go out in our communities? How do we learn more? How do we educate ourselves, so when that business come through the door, in such as a small business, an entrepreneur, how do we manage that relationship? So at Alterna Savings, we are encouraged as staff to go out in the communities, provide our expertise sitting on loan review committees. I personally sit on the RISE Asset Loan Review Committee, looking at different, small business plans that come in and providing my expertise. So I think we internally, we also have to, bear some of that shift in terms of encouraging employees to widen their perspective on how we serve entrepreneur. And if we go out in our communities and volunteer our time and lend our expertise, that's a great way of supporting entrepreneurs when they come in to our doors. And I totally agree with Ritu's comments about getting the data, getting the information that will allow organizations to build programs to support more entrepreneurs. Under our community microfinance program, we've done 2 evaluation studies over the last 20-something years that our program has been operated. And it showed in those 2 evaluation studies that roughly about 60 to 62% of individuals that get microfinancing are women. They are the driving force. They're the engine behind small business and economic development in Ontario, who go through our program to get financing. And, they're pretty strong, they're resilient, they're educated, and they are willing to learn. So with that information, that helps us to create programs to support the woman entrepreneur. And that's where our Working Woman Business Loan has developed from. We are in the process right now of looking at doing another evaluation study. And we're seeing with some of the raw data that we have a lot of women entrepreneurs who are growing and scaling their business, who are going from microloan over into, the small business area, getting large commercial loans, growing their business over time. But I wanted to share one story that I've experienced meeting a female entrepreneur. When she came into our doors, maybe I think 10 years ago, looking for a small business loan, she was at an event, heard about Alterna, heard that we did microfinancing, and came in. And she was extremely happy to see that the 2 lenders that she were speaking to in our organization were both female. So right away, we understand each other. But she also, stated to us she couldn't borrow because every institution or bank she went to, they were asking, so do you have a husband? Can he sign on the loan agreement for you? Can he co-sign the loan for you? And she owned this business. And she wanted to be the primary person to sign on that dotted line to get those funds to incorporate that into her business. And, having more of those organizations or lending programs that really support women entrepreneurs, so we can empower them and build that self-confidence is really, really key. So gathering that data really helps to support other organizations in developing programs that support women entrepreneurs.
Should I go next?
Thank you, Jean, for sharing that story. Yeah, Larissa, I saw you.
Yes, hi. Thanks for that, Jean and Rito. I just wanted to to refocus a little bit. If I were talking to a traditional financial institution, what would I tell them? Well, first of all, the first message would be aware of your own bias when you are analyzing someone's business proposal. Be aware of your own bias, first of all. And second, don't be afraid to challenge and to question your own business practices, because like Melanie said earlier, the traditional financial system was built before women were active in the business force, and now the reality is totally different. There is a lot of data that businesses themselves, the business community, and organizations, community loan organizations have accumulated over the years that prove that women are a good investment. So maybe a traditional bank doesn't have to get rid of all their traditional protocols, but add something else, a different business practice that would apply to a non-traditional business owner from their perspective. So just don't be afraid to challenge your own practices. That's what I would say to a bank.
Yeah, and I'll just jump right in and follow on with that of that funders are missing out on great profitable opportunities by ignoring women and underrepresented entrepreneurs. And that those who are making their funding programs more accessible are getting good business. And as I mentioned with Vancity, they say it's their most successful program, loan program of lending to women entrepreneurs. And it has a high growth rate, because this is a growth opportunity. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the equity piece because we're doing a project on that when women try to access equity funding from investors. Venture capital research says that women founded businesses get less than 2% of venture capital funding. And that is a problem that the women entrepreneurship strategy has provided funding to change. And one of the key pieces for that reason is that investors, typically male, ask women different questions than men. And when they ask those questions, they're called prevention questions, or looking at how are you not going to lose the money. And so they're looking at risk mitigation, and they're looking at the wrong side of the business. What they really want to hear about in order to make that investment decision is, what is the potential? And how is this business going to win big? And how am I going to, 50x my investment in this company? And so one of the training that has been developed out by a professor in Halifax, Dr. Ellen Farrell, is called Investor Ready, that teaches women the different questions and how to recognize when they've been asked a prevention question versus a promotion question, and then how to respond always with a promotion answer, because that gives investors the information that they need to see the investment potential. So the problem that's happening in the equity funding side is that women don't want to go in front of male investors because they don't get a great reception. And so the investors are losing out on some great investment opportunities. And as we see more women become angel investors and getting into venture capital funds and making the investment decisions, they will see these opportunities and be able to take advantage of these opportunities where others think there is no potential. So some wonderful opportunities investing in women. Women are a great and underrepresented groups are great investment potential and businesses. So when we help them succeed, it helps Canada succeed.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I mean, Larissa, Jean, and me too. There's some questions that have been popping up in the Q&A chat box, and I want to make some space and time for that. But really listening to you all makes me reflect on our own experiences working with small business owners and entrepreneurs, right? Many of them have shared that same similar kind of sentiments in that the application process could be a lot more jargon free. It could be a lot more transparent, right? There's a better way of completing financial paperwork. Investment pitch processes can be less onerous, right? There could be very solid mechanisms in place to correct biases. All of these things that financial providers and institutions can kind of tweak on the edges, but also transform these systems that create these barriers to finance. And I wanted to touch on something that many of you all raised at one point or another, but the notion of risk and credit, right? As many small business owners and financial institutions know, that risk is kind of assessed in that traditional way using the 5 C's of credit. Credit worthiness, collateral, and capital, and capacity, and condition. And so there are flaws to this approach, right? And many of you have kind of pointed out some of those flaws that newcomers face with not having a long credit history, or a new business might not have that credit, history as well. And so I'm glad that you've all touched on this aspect of risk in different ways and from different perspectives. So before I don't want to I want to leave enough time for some questions. So I'm going to try to wrap it up now and see if we can get to some audience questions, if that's okay with you all. Okay. So let me just pull up the Q&A here. There was a question that was asked early on in the conversation about finding centralized resources. And so the question is there a centralized resource to identify what next steps to take in financing? For example, based on your stage or based on your industry. I know that there's a ton of resources available. Women's Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub is a good starting point of centralized hub of resources. But I'm sure our panelists also have maybe some resources you could share with our audience and listeners today.
I would like to jump in. We talked about financial literacy, and I want to put a plug in for the Finance Cafe. Does a podcast. They have financial literacy education courses that are very reasonable. They also have a financial literacy quiz of 10 questions that's free on the homepage. And I encourage everyone to do that test. I will declare I got 9 out of 10. So room for improvement, but also, you know, it's the language and the terms are not always clear to everybody in the same way, including people who deal with finance all the time. So it was an opportunity for me to learn. And I really encourage you to check out the Finance Cafe and their weekly podcast.
I agree with you.
I think there is, just to answer the question about a centralized place where information is stored, that a lot of resources are at community agencies, community hubs. For example, the city of Toronto has an entrepreneurship area. You could go to the Enterprise Toronto and get a lot of information about business development, business creation, and other sort of services and tips to help business. And a lot of, if you live in different communities, they will have what's called a business resource center. And that business resource center will be able to provide you that support that you're looking for. There's some financial institution as well that provides webinars and workshops on business resources. At Alterna Savings, for the year, throughout the year, we host a lot of our webinars talking about taxes. How does an entrepreneur pay their taxes? Procurement Canada. How do we get business through Procurement Canada? So there's, you know, you have to search. You could start with your own financial institution and see, you know, the information, or they have a resource center. I know Van City also has one on their website, a resource center. You go to Van City and it lists the events and resources that are coming up monthly. Alterna, we also have that here in Ontario as well. And business resource centers will have information to support entrepreneurs. So there are some great places that a person can go do some research and get information from.
If I can add something, maybe more specific to the province of Quebec, but not only. Here in Quebec, we are several community organizations, community loan organizations have joined their forces together to develop a tool that's called Projet A, which is going to be renamed soon to Plan Va. It's, in addition to being a practical tool for writing your business plan in English or in French, so it could apply to anyone who wants to use this tool outside of Quebec. You can build your business plan or your value proposition model. There are several tools united in that platform. You can also gain visibility to those organizations who are sponsoring this project, and that's a good starting place, because even if none of those specific organizations can help you address your financing needs, they can refer you to someone else. But it's a good place to start, I would say. The website is called projeta.com or .ca. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Either ones, yeah.
.ca. We'll be sure. Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay on my end, but we'll be sure to share these links afterwards. Ritu, I saw you came off mute as well.
Yes, just to add that one of the reference points I've used as well, because there is a segment on our website where we try to share some of these resources that are available, is the Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, part of Canada.ca's website. I did just share the link with Melissa as well. And it talks about the various programs and resources out there, from accessible technology programs to biomanufacturing to other entrepreneurship programs and small business funding. So it's a nice overview to see what potential opportunities could be out there. And to add to Jean's point as well, is I've also joined the local boards of trades or chambers of commerce. They usually are a great resource and a network actually to access and have regular support from as well, to do the different opportunities and programs that are out there as well.
Thank you, Ritu. There was another question that popped up, and maybe you already answered it, Ritu, but, and this could be to all panelists, do you have any suggested incubators or accelerators that you'd recommend small business owners check out?
I know that a lot of the local universities do have some. I know there's the IQB, which is part of the University of Mississauga. I like this other university as well. I will share a link that I just recently came across with all the incubators in Canada, and hopefully that will be helpful, because as I was doing my research as well, I was curious. At the present time, and anyone here can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's less than 300 incubator spaces in Canada, and I hope this is something that we really do see a lot of growth in. But I will be sure to share that with you in a couple.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Startup Care, Parkdale Innovates, and so many others across Canada. We'll be sure to share those resources as well afterwards. Okay, we have I think we have time for another question. Yes, we do. Okay, so this question is, I think this could be, yeah, to all the panelists. Feel free to jump in, whoever feels they're comfortable answering. Given the challenges you're responding to through your lending programs, do you ever have opportunities to share or advocate these best practices with other financial institutions or other major financial institutions? So that cross-sector sharing, is that happening?
I could jump in. That's a yes and a no answer for us. And it's just because of the institution and their policies and so forth. However, we do collaborate with BDC to support entrepreneurs through our co-lending program with BDC. We saw that there was an opportunity that entrepreneurs weren't getting the maximum amount that they were looking for. Sometimes a small business really need a little bit more to get them over that hump. And so we've collaborated with BDC. But I think traditionally, financial institutions, we don't collaborate. And I find that extremely strange and wrong, seeing that we're serving members and clients and customers. We all have the same goal, But I think we just have to think outside of the box as financial institution, and we collaborate with community partners, private charitable organizations that are doing microfinancing and micro lending, and that's how we're able to go into communities and serve the different entrepreneurs. But as a whole, I think financial institution, we need to do more to collaborate, not just credit unions to credit unions or banks to bank, but we need to just be a little bit broader from my perspective.
I could go next. I can say that we also collaborate with several institutions, financial institutions here in Quebec. Desjardins, most of all. Desjardins is a long-term partner. However, just like Jean said before me, I feel like the collaboration goes a little bit one way. What I mean by that is I think that banks like to experiment thanks to us, thanks to the experience that we have with community lending. In addition to testing their ideas, they gain access to new clients, potentially from collaborating with us and lending through us. However, I don't see much opening in terms of questioning or extending their own lending practices. I don't see much of that happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess I would just add, financial institutions are heavily regulated, and that has been a good thing for Canada, that we haven't had the same swings that they've had in other countries with their financial institutions. So they're very much managing their risk and being driven top down. We find credit unions to be much more community focused and a little bit easier to help change the status quo. So at WBC, we continue to work with financial institutions of all different types and help collaborate and help dismantle those barriers. But it's a big job for sure.
A big job. And I really appreciate you all, and Jean and Larissa and Melanie and Ritu for pointing that out, right? That there's some collaboration happening, but there's still a huge chasm, huge progress to go in terms of, financial providers working together collaboratively. It makes me think of a friend who recently said, oh, well, he was an artist, he's a graffiti artist, and he said, we artists work together all the time to access financing and grants. It's our natural way of working across sectors, in the creative sector. And he assumed that a lot of other sectors just do that naturally as well. And that's not always the case. So maybe there's some things we can learn from other sectors and bring that into the financial services sector. There is actually, I think there is. That's what we're all saying. Okay, so I don't think we have any more time for questions, but we will definitely share the resources and links and any information that were shared with participants afterwards. I really want to thank everyone for your thoughtful and pointed questions, and for the ones we couldn't get to. I hope we can keep the conversation going, as our collective work is really to amplify a lot of the small businesses that are doing such amazing stuff across the country. And so as we're winding down towards the end of the session, we just have a few more minutes. I do want to take a moment and pass it over to my colleague, Karen, to share some additional resources. Karen is a wonderful colleague who's effortlessly been behind the scenes putting together this session and tomorrow's session as well. So over to you, Karen.
Thanks so much, Sigal, and thank you to all the panelists for this excellent discussion today. As we mentioned at the beginning of this event, we have co-hosted this webinar series with In Good Company. In Good Company is a collaborative initiative that seeks to enhance justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the small business ecosystem. And the In Good Company partners, so that's Canadian Women's Foundation, YWCA Canada, Catalyst Canada, and Plan International Canada. So as 4 partners, we've brought together a community leadership group of small and medium-sized enterprise leaders who are supporting and positively influencing their teams in implementing really good diversity, equity, and inclusion practices to create meaningful change for women and gender diverse people in the world of work. Ritu from our panel today is one of the leaders who's part of that community leadership group, which gives you a sense of the caliber and commitment of the people that we have at the table. If you are a leader in a small business who is working to make your workplace more welcoming and inclusive, and if you'd like to connect with other like-minded small business leaders, we would love to hear from you. We've put a link in the chat box that if you navigate to it, you can find a little bit more information about the initiative and the ways to connect with the In Good Company team. So we hope we'll see some interest from folks on the webinar today in that initiative. I'd also like to remind you again that tomorrow will be part 2 of our Small Business Week webinar series. The session title tomorrow is Feminist Entrepreneurs Leading Change in Canada's Small Business Ecosystem. We'll have 4 incredible panelists who will be talking about their experiences as entrepreneurs leading change with feminist perspectives. And so we will just pop the link as well to the Eventbrites, so you can sign up there and hopefully attend tomorrow as well. And finally, we want your feedback on today's session. So please take a moment before you log off today to complete our brief survey, the link to which is also being popped into the chat box as I speak. It'll just take a couple of minutes, and we really do want to hear from you and how this session was for you today. That's all from me, and I will just hand it back now briefly to Sagal for closing. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I want to take a moment to really thank our 4 guests and panelists. A huge and a big thank you to Ritu, to Larissa, to Jean, and to Melanie for sharing your time, your expertise, your perspectives. We know that closing the financing gap and the capital gap is ongoing. And I hope that we continue to celebrate small businesses throughout the year, not just during Small Business Week, not just through International Women's Day. Collectively, I hope that we could imagine a more diverse financial sector, one where capital is really flowing to small business owners because they're creating that huge community and shared value impact. An economy and a small business ecosystem that is really flourishing and taking in those intersectional approaches to the way they work, and also for the financial sector that supports them, those intersectional approaches to the way the capital flows. So thank you so much to all those who joined today. I hope you aren't too jarred from teleporting right back to where you were and enjoying the rest of the day. I wish you all a great rest of the day, and thank you again to our panelists.
Thank you so much, Sagal. Great job moderating, herding the cats. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a
for this
great day.
opportunity.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Wonderful. Bye,
Thank you,
Ritu. Bye,
Sagal.
Melanie.
Bye, Sagal.
Bye, Jean.